Well, hello again and welcome to Impacting My World. We're into week 5 of the Impacting My World devotional, and the whole concept or the whole theme for this particular week has to do with the workplace and what happens at work, and taking who we are and what we believe into the space of our daily work. And it's great to have Koketsu Molalwe joining me this afternoon.
Yes,
it's great to have you here. Thank you for being part of this conversation.
Thank you, Rick. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you and just talking about things that really matter.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what the introduction of week 5 is. What I do really matters, eh?
Yeah.
You've hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Talk to me about what you felt stirred you out of this particular week.
Rick, I think what really stood out for me is the quote that we know by Miles Monroe that says, "Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable." And we have bought into the idea of busyness.
Yep.
People measure the success of life with how busy they are. And it is never about how busy you are, but how purposeful what you're doing is.
That's awesome.
And then there's a saying that we buy into that says, a man's got to do what a man's got to do.
Yeah.
No, a man's got to do what is purposeful.
Yeah, you're right.
A man's got to do what he's called to do.
Well, you've taken us into the title of day 29, the whole thing of man's got to do. And the theme of day 29 obviously is taking responsibility, but not for what works for me. Taking responsibility, as Jesus at the age of 12 said, I must be about my Father's business. Well, if we know what our Father's business is, and when we engage, then we engage with that in mind, and aligning what we do with what He is busy doing.
And look at what God then says to Adam and gives him a command. It says, I'm giving you this place, cultivate and protect it. He does not start with, make sure that you have everything you want, make sure that you are protected yourself, make sure that you are covered, and no. His first command to him is that this place that I've given you, cultivate it, protect it, look over it, take care of it. The surrounding that you are in, the people that you find around, let them enjoy a good quality of life because of your presence.
Right.
And it moves us from focusing on what fulfills us and moves us to a point where we focus on what pleases our Father.
Right.
You say, God, with the work that I'm doing, how am I cultivating this earth? With the work that I'm doing, how am I protecting this earth? With the work that I'm doing, how am I fulfilling that which you have called me for?
In a previous week, obviously, we talked about the whole thing of what God values, and when we destroy what God values, it can never bring us happiness. So obviously, in this week, when we talk about taking responsibility, when we talk about cultivating, talk about working with what's already there in order to bring it to a whole new level of effectiveness and impact. Obviously, we need to find out what God values and work in alignment with that.
And what is beautiful is that God then says in John 3:16, it says, for God so loved the world. So God loves the world. He loves these people. And then it says He gave. So there's an order that He says, you know what? When in your work, you are not there to take. You are actually there to add value, to give.
Love it.
In a space that I love, that which He loves. And it's such a beautiful thing.
Well, you're already hinting on day 32's focus, the whole thing of relationships in the workplace, and how that what we do with people and what we do in the presence of people and what affects people is going to leave a lasting impression. And because God values people, what we do with people is important to Him.
And isn't it amazing that when Jesus Christ starts His ministry, He collects a bunch of local businessmen. He says, you know what, let me build a team of people that I can work with to make an impact. And because of the 3.5 years that He spent with them, they went ahead to change millions and millions of, until today, were impacted by the work that they've done. When you stop looking at serving yourself and self-preservation, there's so much more that God wants to do through you in this organization and beyond.
I love the African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, travel alone. But if you want to go far, travel together.
And isn't it funny, Rick, that in the corporate world, that's not that's not what people experience. It's in the corporate world, is a dog eat dog world. You know, everyone is I'm looking out for number one, and I need to get ahead. And that is when we think my kingdom as opposed to God's kingdom. When you walk into a working space, you know that I'm not here to serve my kingdom. I'm here serving the agenda of my Father, the one who has called me into the space.
Beautiful. There's so much good stuff here in this
particular
particular week
it's
when it
amazing.
comes to the workplace. So I'm going to quickly just touch on some of the things that stirred me, and you're welcome to comment and chip in and challenge where you feel I've missed something important.
All right.
Please do. All right. I think in the introduction to this particular week, we're talking about understanding why we do what we do, because why we do what we do determines how we do it, when we do it, where we do it, and so on. So the understanding the why, working from the why, and in the introduction, the comment is made that when we understand who we are and whose we are, that helps us to crystallize or define why we're doing what we do.
And when we understand who we are, we understand that in Christ our authority and position in this world is established. So we don't go into workspaces to accumulate things to get our worth, to establish our worth and to establish our position. We know that because of Christ, through him on the cross, our position was established, our authority was established, so we step out from a place of authority. And the dog eat dog world kind of mentality is because people don't know who they are. If I knew who I was, then I know that I don't have to compete with anyone because there's no competition. The one who has sent me has already set out a path for me.
So true, so true. In day 30, the conversation goes to cultivating exactly what you mentioned a few minutes ago. Taking what is there and developing it to the next level. So that's the essence of cultivating, and then engage with what's there in order to develop it and make it what God intended it to become.
And the beautiful thing is all we have to do is look around us. Everything that God has created is progressive.
True.
Everything that God has created grows.
From seeds into
forest into and then he gives us a brain as a people to say with this forest, these are the things that can be created with this natural. So there is that thing of saying the cultivation process needs to make the environment progressive and better.
That's right.
And when we get into business, when we get into workspaces, it needs to be about how does my position and the work that I'm doing making the environment progressive and better? How are people's lives changing for the better because of my engagement?
Right. Day 30 also starts with that, but then it takes us to the conversation. It takes us in a conversation about choices and about the use of time. And mentions here that time, like money, flows in the direction of our weaknesses unless we harness it intentionally and steer it in the right direction.
I like that it actually then puts time and choice together.
True.
And if we make the right choices, you know, people always say 24 hours is not enough. If you make the right choices, it can be enough. But the first right choice, Rick, I think is spending time with God every morning. Spending time with God, if you can make that right choice, then your whole day it will be an array of good choices and time well invested, because now you have spoken to the one who has insight into your day.
Oh yes. And then also the comment is made here that he doing this, exactly what you mentioned here, is hearing from him, sets us up to be able to discern between opportunities and distractions.
And isn't it interesting that what the devil offered Adam and Eve looked like a great opportunity?
Oh yes, it was.
And in the moment where God's voice is silenced to them, everything looks like a great opportunity. That's why prayer is so important, that it is able to help you discern what is an opportunity and what is stealing your identity and the greatness that God has already placed in you.
True. On day 31, of course, doing good, engaging for the sake of benefit and improvement, the whole thing of engaging or using legitimate options. You've just pointed out that Adam and Eve were offered an illegitimate option. So in that sense, God has legitimate options in mind when it comes to workplace and work processes. Martin Luther actually points out God could have given us food without us having to work. He could have, but he chose not to. He chose to get us to engage in the way he has set things up to work, so that our engagement would bring about the reward of what he intended us to have. But he invites us to engage for the sake of that reward.
And the process is always for the benefit of us. The process matures us into the people that God has created us to be. When you engage because God wants us to have all great things, but the most importantly, I think, is for us to grow into becoming all that he has created us to be. And shortcuts rob us of the growth.
Oh yes, yeah.
It robs us of that growth. Like when we are in corporate environments, we want to steal, to bribe, and to take shortcuts. We rob ourselves of becoming all that God has created us to be. The process is not for our it's not there to limit us. It is actually there to grow us. Research shows us that the food that we get now, the process is speeded up. It's hurried up. Now you can get a chicken in 3 weeks and it's fine, and all those kinds of things. But the side effects of all those things we are beginning to see because we want to bypass the process.
You mentioned earlier, as we were setting up for the conversation here, the whole thing of when things become uncomfortable, we disengage, and how negative that is actually for our development path.
The difficulty in it is to stretch you and take out all the things that you have learned that are not a part of who you are. Because there's a lot of things that we have learned that is not who God has called us to be. And the process is there to then sometimes, chisel those things out.
Oh, that's lovely. You're just underscoring something, Koketsu, that we have here on on page 164. And I'd just love to read this because this was for me such a powerful summary of what you've just put down. He says, this is from Tim Keller and his book Every Good Endeavor, which is an incredible book to get hold of. It's a good book to read. He says here, we are not to choose jobs and conduct our work to fulfill ourselves and accrue power. For being called by God to do something is empowering enough. Exactly as you said it a few minutes ago. We are to see work as a way of service to God and our neighbor. And so we should choose both and conduct our work in accordance with that purpose. He says the question regarding our choice of work is no longer what will make me the most money and give me the most status. The question we must now ask is how, with my existing abilities and opportunities, can I be of greatest service to other people, knowing what I do of God's will and human need. That was such a great way of pulling this thing together.
When we choose our job, our career, our first thought is, how do I serve God and those around me through what I'm doing right now? I'm of the view, Rick, that God, one of the reasons why God gave us purpose is because He made a promise to His people. And it is a way of fulfilling that promise. Our purpose is one of the vehicles that fulfills the promise that He has given those people. He gave the Israelites a promise of freedom and stepping out of bondage. And Moses' purpose was to serve that promise.
Absolutely. Well done. That's exactly where that's going. Obviously, in the workplace and in our engaging with the world, we do encounter opposition, stuff that goes wrong, problems that get caused that need to be solved. And I think the thing that compounds problems is the fact that so often we find people who don't want to take the blame. They're very happy to take the credit when things go right, but they don't want to take the blame. And that means they disengage or they leave the problem for someone else to solve.
And in doing that, missing out on one of the most important characters that God has placed in us. And when we meet difficulties, I think it's God's way of creating an opportunity for His creative and innovative character in us
Right.
to come alive. And when we blame and point fingers, we miss out on that.
Right.
Yeah.
I love one of the things that Alan Platt says fairly regularly: don't waste a good crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you see a problem, it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yeah. I mean, the disciples almost missed an opportunity with the 5,000 people.
You're right.
You know, Christ is like,
yeah.
you know, they're like, no, let's send them home. No, we couldn't send them home. This is an opportunity for a miracle to happen.
Yeah.
When you see a challenge, you're like, we say, God, thank you. You are about to show yourself up, you know, and I want to be aligned with what you're doing. Yeah.
Lovely. You pointed out a few minutes ago what Day 34 also brings to the fore when it talks about our work and our worship, and how we have, I think, over generations, it's gravitated to be two different things.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you look at the meaning of the word worship, coming from the concept worthship, when we engage and what we do with our time and our talents in this world, when we take it to the place of we're serving Him and His purposes, then I'm actually called to do things that are worthy of His approach and desire and design for this world. And in that sense, then my work, when I engage, doing what's worthy of His calling, it becomes worship.
Yeah. And in worship, we glorify Him.
That's right.
And if our work's primary purpose is to elevate ourselves, we don't see it as worship.
That's
but
true.
if the purpose of our work is to glorify Him, then we see it as worship. It's difficult, Rick, to see work as worship if it is to serve me and glorify me and lift me up.
You're so right.
Yeah.
I think the responsibility thing as well. There's somebody once said responsibility. You need to use the word responsibility responsibly, because it means response to ability. So my response to God's ability is the thing that drives me, in a sense, to take responsibility. The last day of this week talks about legacy and leaving a lasting impact, making a positive impression that goes beyond the time and the area that we're in. And some of the things that are mentioned there, I think, are pretty much foundational for engaging in the workplace. Doing it with integrity, doing it with intensity, the whole thing of energy and focus, doing it generously, investing obviously beyond just what's right and good for me, and also the whole thing of humility. I love the comment that somebody once made: if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. So humility has got to do with being a lifelong learner, willing to learn and to grow through engaging with people and discovering what their ideas are about what's happening here.
People will not remember how rich you are or how great you are and all those things. I mean, they will remember, you know, that saying that says people don't normally remember what you said to them, but how you make them feel.
You're so right.
They'll know with His work, this is how we felt as a country,
awesome.
as a community.
I think we're going to land this here, and maybe just with a last comment. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 31, I think, wraps up this whole week for us in terms of work and the way we're working, not just for current reward or for immediate gratification. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, whether therefore you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Do it as unto Him. So let me encourage you. Thank you, Kuketsu, for sharing those insights with us. And let me encourage you, as you go now to your small group discussion, just share what God has stirred in your heart and how He has taken your thoughts to be in alignment with His thoughts about the workplace and what we're doing 9 to 5. God bless you. Enjoy.